Iran's got a lot of trouble as we assemble our political panel. Bloomberg Politics contributor, Republican strategist Rick Davis is here, partner at Stone Court Capital, alongside Democratic strategist Matt Bennett from Third Way. Gentlemen, great to have both of you with us here. Rick, I don't know what it is about 2 weeks that the president is always reaching for when he needs some breathing room, but you wonder if this has a lot to do with MAGA. Having lunched with Steve Bannon yesterday, MAGA urging for restraint in this case. Is he trying to show his most faithful supporters that he gave diplomacy every chance?
Yeah, this is something that is really fascinating about this presidency is his own supporters don't mind criticizing him about decisions they believe might be in violation of the promises he made on the campaign trail. And this is prima facie evidence of that. And so, it's no question in the back of his mind. I think it's evidence that Steve Bannon going over to the White House, one of his firmest critics on this issue of opening up a military front in Iran, is gotten to him. Look, I think it's an interesting device that Donald Trump uses when he feels under pressure. He kicks the can, right? He doesn't hunker down and try to make a decision. He just delays for time. And on its own, it's a strategic idea. The downside to Donald Trump is it just leaves more lobbying room, more public and private negotiations to take place within his own ruling coalition, if you want to call it that, before you ever get to the point of figuring out, okay, what are we going to do to Iran to stop them from being able to enrich uranium. So, I mean, it's, I think we're going to be up for at least the next 10 days, a incredibly troublesome process because Donald Trump likes to think out loud. And that's going to throw a lot of different curveballs into this system.
What is it about 2 weeks, Matt Bennett? Sean McCreesh in the New York Times this morning suggesting that it is a slippery thing when it comes to Trump, not a measurement of time so much as a placeholder. Tax plans, he writes, healthcare policies, evidence of conspiracy theories he claimed were true, the fight against ISIS, the opening of some coal mines, infrastructure plans, all at one point or another were riddles he promised to solve in about 2 weeks. So what takes place in 2 weeks this time?
It's a really good question. As somebody pointed out, Jimmy Kimmel, I think, said he's the guy that loved to say you're fired, and instead he's giving everybody 2 weeks notice on everything. But it never sticks. I mean, the 2 weeks that he wanted to roll out his healthcare plan was 5 years ago, and we're still waiting. So 2 weeks is meaningless. And I think to Rick's point, the problem here is that now everybody and their brother is going to be lobbying him from their own weirdo points of view in his coalition. I mean, think about how he fired most of the members of his National Security Council, including the leader of it, because Laura Loomer, probably the most extreme big influencer in the MAGA world, she is completely crazy. She came into the White House and said he should fire a bunch of people, so he did. God knows whether I know she's lobbying him on the Iran thing. Whether he's listening or not, who knows? But this is not good news for America.
Well, I don't know what's going to come from 2 weeks here, Rick, but we also should allow for other logistical concerns, right? Donald Trump is talking to Benjamin Netanyahu, and if Israel can take care of this on its own, I suspect he would prefer that. And I wonder your thoughts on what deliberations might be taking place inside the Pentagon here with your connections to the defense space, knowing that Israel is considering sending special forces underground into Fordo, that a power outage or another act of sabotage could eliminate these centrifuges, not unlike American B-2s. How do you square all these ideas?
Yeah, look, there are an enormous number of moving parts that are both on our side and on Israel's side. The Nimitz has not gotten on position yet. They'll arrive this weekend. Yep. We've called up the Eisenhower, a third carrier group, to be put into the Med, and they don't get there until next week. You've mentioned that the Israelis are flexing for ground operations, which they've done successfully in the past, most recently just earlier this week. And the U.S. is flexing for more military capacity and moving our civilian personnel out of embassies right now in the region. So there is a lot happening while the president makes a final decision as to whether or not to use U.S. forces to strike Fordo. And by the way, it does not limit Israel at all doing what they're doing. If anything, we heard it today from the Iranian foreign minister that how are we supposed to negotiate a peace deal if Israel is attacking us every day? And I think most people who watch this space closely would agree the only reason they're willing to talk about peace is because Israel is hurting them every day. And so I think all of this sort of lends some credibility to Donald Trump giving these kinds of 2-week notices that we'll have all our facilities in place. The Defense Department has lots of assets. They're moving to the region. And the president then can still make a decision to go for peace and not for striking, or vice versa. So it doesn't take any options away from the president, but it makes it very clear to the Iranians today that with this kind of firepower, both from the Israeli side and the U.S. side, within 1 week, it's going to be very difficult for them to say anything but uncle.
This is a remarkable moment here, certainly militarily an inflection point. This Operation Pressure Cooker, Matt, has got to be noticed by Iran. There's a lot of questions, though, about the so-called day after. This is the big MAGA question as framed by Steve Bannon or by Tucker Carlson in that interview with Ted Cruz that went on for 2 hours. How worried is Donald Trump about the day after?
You better be pretty worried. I mean, we have seen this movie before. Same region, accusations that WMDs were being developed. We moved in big way, and it went very, very badly, as you may recall, with the Iraq War. So he better worry about that. And I think, Joe, as you and I have discussed on your show before, it isn't just up to the United States as to whether this expands into something more than just a couple of big bombs dropped on Fordo. If we do that, maybe even if we don't, it's up to the Iranians as to whether they want to attack our forces in the region, whether they want to use cyber attacks against the United States, whether they want to use sleeper agents in the United States. They have some agency here, too. Not a ton. I mean, they don't have any air defense. There's a lot they can't do. But they could widen this conflict even if we didn't want to. So I think it is very, very dangerous. And Trump, as Rick said earlier, Trump was elected on the promise that he's not going to get us entangled in foreign wars. He may not intend to do that, but he could stumble into it as President Bush did, and he's well aware of that.
Rick, you just very effectively described the growing footprint of military hardware, U.S. military hardware, our presence in the region. When you step back and consider the possibilities, what would happen if Iran, in fact, attacked U.S. forces in a world that Matt Bennett is describing?
Yeah, look, I mean, we would react with proportion at a time and place of our choosing. That's one of my favorite terms that the military uses to keep everything on their schedule, not our opponents. And in this case, I would have no doubt that the Defense Department has plans that would incapacitate Iran's ability to launch missiles. You've seen already a lot of that capability degraded from the Israeli attacks, not just on military sites, but where they also manufacture these weapons, and even the power systems that fuel the launch system. So we know as much as Israel does about what the Iranian vulnerabilities are, and we would take advantage of those Iranian vulnerabilities. So it is no doubt in my mind that this would not be a one and done. If we decide to launch a strike on Fedor and think of it as a way of incapacitating a nuclear program with Iran, and Iran does nothing, well, that's a scenario that we could all get used to quick. If then Iran goes after our troops, our facilities in the region, it could pose itself into a much more devastating outcome, both for the United States, but also for Iran. And I would remind everybody, Iran is already attacking us cyber systems all the time. Iran has assassination squads in the United States going after people like John Bolton. who assisted in the assassination of Soleimani. I mean, like, these aren't people who have been behaving themselves and now have the capacity to hurt us. They have been hurting us for decades, and now they are paying a price.
Rick Davis and Matt Bennett. Great panel. Rick, thank you so much. And Matt, have a great weekend.